Golden Matters, episode 2. We were here with Jean Hedges, and she is phenomenally active and social and wonderful in all ways. What she's here to talk about today is underlying all that amazing external. There's still some things that she deals with. So we're going to have Jean start off and give us a little bit of your background and kind of history of your life.
I started out outside of Detroit, Michigan, a city called St. Clair Shores. Hated Detroit. Turned 18 and bought a car, much to my mother's surprise. I had been working and saving money since I was 13. Went to California. Wow. She cut me off thinking I'd bounce back. And I had a carload of girlfriends. I was the last one who actually made it to California. We took our time and we stopped in the Grand Canyon, and I knew I wanted to go to California. California dreaming was big. And halfway down the Grand Canyon, ran into some girls from California and said, "Where in California?" I didn't know if I wanted to go to San Francisco or San Diego. They said the cutest boys in the country are in Newport Beach. Guess where I was right inside in Costa Mesa, and Newport was a 10-minute drive, in Laguna Beach. Community college was free back then. 2 years at a community college and in-state tuition. So I moved to San Diego because Costa Mesa didn't have a university and Fullerton was not a cool spot. I think it was $1,000 a year back then. I mean, my total student debt was like $2,000.
Oh my gosh.
And we were both in San Diego State at the same time. This man I've been married to for 40 years. We never knew each other the whole time we were there.
I didn't realize that. How neat is that?
And then we met through a party a friend was having, who I later realized, like 30 years later, she was trying to connect with him, but she didn't tell me that. We hit it off and that was it. I mean, we literally moved in within a week and got married within a year.
Oh my, 40 years later now.
2 kids, 3 grandbabies. I was making about triple what he was. I always was the money maker in my relationships. Son was born and I looked at daycare. I started crying. I said, "Figure it out. I'm not going to work." And within a year, he was selling auto parts, like store to store for Napa. He became their national sales manager, and I didn't have to. I did work like in schools and helping with kids stuff, but not full-time employment until they were in high school. And then my career took off and made more than him again.
Just wait. Hold my beer for 18 years, like that.
Pretty much.
And Jean, have you always been very active?
I was never athletic, but I did yoga. I read a book called Yoga Youth Reincarnation by Jess Stern when I was probably in middle school. We were doing yoga out of a book, paperback book. And then when my daughter was probably in high school, I said, "Let's get certified in yoga together." And we both got certified to teach. And I briefly taught yoga. And what's really funny is I went into mortgage lending, and you know who my top referral partner was? He was the manager of the apartments that I was being paid to teach yoga in. And he was a new realtor that my career took off from teaching yoga.
Wow. So you never know what's going to lead to what.
Everything's connected.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a true believer in manifesting.
I love that. That's definitely worked for you, it sounds like.
So sadly, COVID came. My mortgage business was through the charts. And they said it was Delta. I was fully vaccinated. I'm not an anti-vaxxer in any way, shape, or form. I follow the science, but they said Delta strain was not in the vaccine. Oh, something people need to be aware of. Viruses morph. And if we don't have herd immunity, not enough people had their COVID shots. COVID morphed and Delta caused massive memory and gut issues for me, which have remained for now 3 years.
So wild. Jean, I know we talked about now you have difficulty with facial recognition. Like if you meet somebody, you could see them again 2 days later and have absolutely no idea who they are just based off the face.
But I remember the full conversation. That's what's funny. As soon as they ping me, go, "Oh yeah, we had that conversation." And you think you are your brain, but you're not. Your brain has a lot more control than you ever would guess.
Was COVID the beginning of challenges for you, would you say? Or
absolutely.
Was there stuff prior?
I was rocking out. I mean, I closed almost $100 million in loans the year I got COVID. And the next year was like $2 million. I mean, it was a huge, and it was all because if you can't remember a conversation or plans and things, it's pretty hard to do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So if you were going to walk us a mile in your shoes today, what does that look like for you, including the brain fog and some of the sensory topics?
You know what? My life's a blessing. I thank God every day. I was never, even though people will call me liberal. I'm fiscally conservative, invested. And so we live very comfortably. And one thing, I used to be kind of a type AAA, high anxiety, go getter. Nothing bothers me anymore. I'm in a good mood all the time. Life is good.
And I definitely see that when I see you at the gym. People probably mistake her for a trainer because she's so positive and happy. You can just see it.
And I love working out. I mean, it's like the part of my day I really like the most.
Yeah, it's fun. I know. And you can really stretch it out there. They really do have a lot of neat programs. So tell me about the eye situation we talked about. I think it was glaucoma and driving and those kinds of things that are a bit challenging.
Yeah, vision, and it's not just a prescription issue. Before they had LASIK, I had what was called radiokeratotomy because I had like Coke bottle glasses back in the day. And that was the first thing they had to get rid of glasses. But unfortunately, cornea surgery is for cataracts is not what it would be for somebody who didn't have that. My husband just had it. It was wonderful. Same doc told me to hold off as long as I can. And I've got the beginning of glaucoma. Age, I compare it to a car. After you put a couple 100,000 miles, like my car, it's been a great car, but stuff just starts to break down. But, mobility, flexibility, strength, keep that up. And the synovial fluid in your joints, I try to research everything. If a doctor, I don't take any prescription drugs. The few I took all had horrible side effects. But I look into research. Like for my colitis, the GI doc was recommending budesonide. It turned my osteopenia to osteoporosis. Then he gave me cholesterol, which started to give me all kinds of tendon issues. And then they gave me one other one that caused a hernia. And then I went online, found Dr. Bredesen, who actually is a professor at Duke. He's one that does the research. He recommends psyllium fiber. Believe it or not, it worked better than any of those meds.
Wow.
It keeps it under control.
Yeah.
Have you tried anything else for the brain that help with the brain fog?
Well, I'm taking these mushroom gummies with all these different mushrooms, lion's mane, etc. That, and then the recently tried the lithium, but it's making me a little nervous because it can have kidney. The only side effect I've seen is kidney issues, but that makes me kind of nervous. How about you? You got any ideas?
Have you done anything with omega?
Yeah, I have. But you know what? I'm not taking it right now, but I take glucosamine, chondroitin, HA, hyaluronic acid, and I have a bottle of creatine. I'll tell you why I stopped taking it, because it has a lot of calories. You gotta mix it in a smoothie.
Well, as you're aging too, right? Like with calories, you have to be almost more conscientious than you've ever been.
You know what? I went keto. Another Dr. Bredesen, he used to do workshops right here. And if I keep under about 60 grams of carbs a day, I can eat more than, like my husband weighs 240, I weigh 120. I eat more than he does. But I eat keto pastas. Wow. I can eat a bowl like this with tons of meatballs, and he's a little half portion or less. And yeah, he eats a protein bar that's full of carbs. I eat one that has like monk fruit as a sweetener. We eat the same, but the carbs are a big deal. It's a secret. Nobody realizes, but I do whole foods, you can do an Atkins version, which is all processed foods. I do all whole organic foods. On your point about the omega-3s and 7s, the pasture-raised eggs and meat are supposed to be high in omega-3s compared to the ones that are grain-fed. I pay more for my food. You save it in medical.
But it's a preventative medicine. Hopefully, I think. I think Whole Foods is really, really smart. I mean, it can't be a bad thing. It certainly can't make things worse.
I've read nothing but good things on supplementing additional omegas.
Do you deal with, so when you're being active, like when I see you, are you dealing with the brain fog at the gym? Like when you're trying to be active and social, is that challenging?
Oh my God. I do Pilates almost every day. And I use the Reformer, which I highly recommend for seniors. The Reformer protects your joints like you can't believe. So you get the full workout, but you don't get the pounding that young people can take. But they're like, Jean, you've been taking this class for 10 years. And they have to give me reminders all the time. It's okay. I just laugh.
That's good. Has anything surprised you as you've gotten older? That you
know what?
expecting?
It's a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Honestly, no work. I don't know how I got through a day with my work schedule, because you get up, have coffee, have my protein bar, get on Facebook, check my email, maybe ping and text a few friends, get to the gym, have lunch, maybe clean a few things up, empty the dishwasher, do a little laundry. And by then it's time to either go out to dinner or help the hubby cook a nice dinner for us. We go out for live music about 3 nights a week, and it's all
Ooh,
good.
that's fun.
Honestly, it's better than you could ever guess.
I love
Invest,
this. I
invest,
love
invest is my biggest advice to people.
to invest in properties specifically or anything.
So real estate was my comfort zone. We had stocks, and I had a friend who gave me advice. He said, buy Google, buy Amazon. I bought it, sold it all at a loss. I would be a quadruple millionaire right now, but to me, it was all on paper. It could have all been Blockbuster and, name somebody else who's gone out of business. So you got to do where your comfort zone is and what you know. Look over years, though, real estate, minimally buy your own house and invest. We now have 9 properties, and everything's paid for, and it's all just income coming in.
Wow. Good for you, G. You're like a aspirational story, I think, for many on the financial side and the health side.
My husband, he likes managing the property. And we've got most of them are like RTP. We get professors, professionals. We don't look at just ROI on a piece of paper. I mean, your time is a huge investment. So he doesn't have to do much. I mean, they leave these places so clean, you wouldn't believe it. Now we go in and he repaints every time, even if it only needs a little scrubbing. He goes off the charts for his tenants, and you should see the letter he got from the last one that left. I wish I had it in front of me to show you. They just went on and on about how wonderful he was.
Oh,
How large of houses are these?
Townhomes. So most of them
okay.
are either connected or really close. They're all townhomes, and they all go for, to 2,000, 2,500. And, there's taxes, there's upkeep. There's a lot of stuff on there.
I like that you took your background in mortgage lending and made it work for you in retirement. It's pretty smart.
Well, my first house we bought was in San Diego. We didn't keep it. We bought it at 150, sold it at 300. You know what Zillow has it now? Like $1.5 million.
Let me guess. Oh,
Sorry.
okay. I was gonna guess 2. No, it's okay. I love San Diego, so I keep up with the real estate there myself. Yeah, it's not cheap.
Historically, it's never, as long as you can hold on to it, you're in a situation where you can hold it. If you Google it and look at real estate, it just skyrockets.
Yeah, over time, right? Like will always go up over time. Smart. Okay, so can I ask you about this? So I've been reading about main conditions and vulnerabilities when it comes to older generations. So especially with health. So the risks of falling, sensory degradation, which we kind of talked about with you with glaucoma and cataracts, infections, and then something that's really interesting to me is multiple chronic conditions at once. Have you had any experience with any of that, or anybody in your life or in your circle that you've noticed those kinds of things as they've been aging?
Falls are the biggest thing. I do the Pilates. I also try to do at Lifetime their bar, BARRE, not BAR, bar classes, because it was for dancers to build ankle strength and articulation. One little thing, and many of us have osteopenia, osteoporosis. So a fall isn't just like a broken femur, it's a shattered hip, So you cannot do enough in that regard. People think, oh, I'm just going to lift weights or I'm going to do, other types of workouts, but those are critical, I believe. You're right. The falls, they say something after a fall, the death rate is something like 50% for seniors. It's something crazy.
Because it's just the continuous deterioration after a fall, what can happen, like mental health, your movement, loneliness. Is it about that, or is it the body more so?
I was wondering the same. I just saw the statistic and it just reinforced that I was doing the right thing with those versus some other more intense workouts that I really was working hard on mobility, flexibility.
I have to look into it too. I'll be curious with falling, because obviously that's balance, and there's all the inner ear stuff with balance. I'd be curious about research on that. Like, what can you do? But certainly on the physical end, I think that's smart to work on ways to keep balance and stability in your body so that you can avoid falling.
One thing about the inner ear, it's not right about that specifically, but I've found, you always want to get your doctor. I'm not a doctor, but also go behind your doctor and research. And I go like to Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical Review, Stanford Medical Review, and look at the latest research. And I also find going to UNC or Duke, I ask, who's your top teaching doc for this specific thing? And still go behind them. Like the doctor that prescribed the budesonide and stuff, he was not a teaching doc. He was just the nearest, GI doc in the area. But double check, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And it's worth trying sometimes a few different things because everybody's wired a little differently.
That's really good advice. So you specifically seek out the research side of it on top of the, we'll say, practicing side of it.
Always.
Really
Surgery
smart.
or pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
Right after this, I'm going for, it's a radio frequency treatment called soft wave for my low back. I've suffered from low back issues from sitting at a computer. You're going to maybe notice this yourself. I've got 3 compressed discs, and it stimulates platelets to rebuild the joint tissue. And I Googled it, and that's what athletes have been using for years. But it's just, now it's becoming widespread. But things like that, my doc would never recommend.
That's really interesting. I know Corey, we share a healthcare background, him more so than me, but there do seem to be an awful lot of things available that are not, let's say, mainstream, or they're not yet intended to be prime time yet for various probably political business reasons that you just think, come on, let the people have it. Put it in the doctor's hands so that the patients can get it. But for now, there's still a lot of cash pay things out there. Like I'm sure that soft wave therapy is probably cash pay
It
because
sure is. It's not cheap.
yeah, and that's disappointing because there's so many people that can utilize these things and it can help them, and they're gonna probably not be here by the time they actually become covered, and it's really sad.
And, I put my money, like I said, when I tell people what I spend on food because it's all organic, they're like, oh, no. But then they go on, say, a cruise. I'd rather skip the cruise and buy my food or have my radio frequency and be comfortable and feel good. And God, within a 3-hour drive in our area, we're so blessed. You can get to the ocean, you can get to the mountains, you can get to everything and just stay in an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Jean, you've been active your entire life. I'm sure you've met people at these groups that you're at Lifetime that are just trying to get active now that they've retired, or maybe they've had some health issues. What's your recommendation for people like that haven't been active their entire life, and what's your experience with that? Do they stick with it, or just what's your experience with those types of people?
Well, are you familiar with Mel Robbins?
Yes, for sure.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. First thing of the day, I do my workout. If you don't do it first thing, you will find 100 other things that seem more important later on in the day. So that's number 1. Make it your first priority. Secondly, I love Pilates on a reformer, but again, that's not cheap. It's a pricey thing, but I will put my money into that over something other people like. They want diamonds. Just so you know, my jewelry is all from Temu right now that I'm wearing. My glasses are Amazon. They were 3 pair for $10. You just got to pick and choose what your priorities are financially. And
I went to a workshop recently, and they said that the 3 things that the aging population thinks about the most is, number 1, will I outlive my money? So we've obviously talked about finances. And number 2, healthcare and mobility. So we've kind of discussed that. And number 3 is not having a purpose, or on the flip side of that, having a purpose each day. I think a lot of people identify as something in their professional life, and then they retire, and then they don't have a purpose, or they're seeking the next purpose in their life. So how do you look at that each day?
I'm very active on the wake dems, and that is my obsession. I was unaffiliated. I think Roosevelt, Eisenhower were great presidents. Even Bush was great. It's not a party thing. It's the fact that somebody's building a militia. They're building a palace adjacent to the White House. They're taking children out of school and trying to send them to Guatemala with no parents. These things, I just don't know how our country can support it. And I just want, people with integrity running this nation. So I'm going to fight. And it gives me energy, gets that adrenaline going, and fight.
That's your purpose right now. Yeah, and your purpose is you've been compelled to act, which I think is really admirable.
I also have a few documentaries I'd like to do. I just have to find, I've got the outlines.
What are they? I'm dying here.
Okay, I'll share it. And if anybody wants to do it, I don't even want to make money. I'd rather do it as a legacy. And if there's finances that I would be to, I want it to go to homeless vets would be what I'd want for that, any money that came out of them. It's to look at our Vietnam vets. They don't get the respect that like our World War II vets got. Look at their life stories and film pictures of them in high school, maybe on the track team, and then pictures. And I think you can get it. I mean, there's pictures. It wouldn't actually be them, but being in a trench, looking at another 18-year-old boy and having a choice of shooting this little kid or getting yourself shot. We don't respect what these boys went through. And then when I was getting my nails done, the second thing that hit me was I was talking to the nail tech. She's Vietnamese. Do you know she had to ride her bike 25 miles to get to school and do a second one on what those people, immigrants, initially Vietnamese, just because of partners with the soldiers trying to help them. And we don't respect immigrants. I mean, it goes very deep and it's really sad. I want to drive that home.
So you mentioned legacy. So specifically your legacy would be to help vets with PTSD. Is that it?
That would be a big piece of it. But also empathy for our migrants and for the American dream. My grandparents all were born in Italy and came here to work. My dad went to work in coal mines when he was like 8 years old. My mother dropped out to help raise her siblings because her mother was dying from having too many kids. They had no birth control and half the babies died. And it's important that we provide medical care.
Wow, Jean, that's intense.
So, obviously PTSD is a big topic when it comes to healthcare. And I'm right with you when it comes to veterans and the Veterans Hospital. I'm curious, there's a topic that Carrie and I brought up the other day. Do you think, and I don't even know if this is real, but do you think there's some sort of PTSD when it comes from people in the workforce, maybe like executives that have been working 70 to 80-hour work weeks and then all of a sudden they retire and not having that type of purpose? Do you feel like there's some sort of depression that sets in or some type of traumatic stress that comes from that, from going from the top of your career to, what do I do next? Have you thought about that, or do you hear that in your groups
I
at
see
all?
it with my husband, but I'll tell you the
Okay.
difference between his retirement and mine. I chose to retire. It was my decision because I had a team. I felt like I was letting them down. The company didn't say out, I made the decision. So it was me. With him, he had a stroke years ago. And he literally, his vocal ability, he was very vocal. He'd run big meetings and things. His company rifted him and he had basically sold his soul to that company. And when they said, yeah, you're over 62, you need to retire, that did that to him. I mean, it really took his ego, and that's what gave him purpose, and he lost it.
Right.
And I still feel it going on with him.
But what has he done to try to overcome that identity issue?
Sadly, he gets up, has his coffee, he goes on the computer, watches the news and gets depressed. Then he goes upstairs, watches the news and gets more depressed. And then he watches sports the rest of the day. When I can get him out, I get him out as often as I can. And then he does great. If you get him out, he comes back.
And when you get him out, what do you do? Is it just a walk outside or what is it?
He's unfortunately got health issues that make it, he's got psoriatic arthritis. But once he gets out, we usually go out. I love live music. I don't like to drive more than 10 minutes. I get him out for live music and I have to add dinner into it. So I buy him dinner. Just kidding. It's mutual fun. But he likes going out to dinner and he likes the live music.
He's got a lot on the, let's call it more obvious health side then. He's kind of a little bit of the opposite of you. It's harder for him to move around and get into that motivated state.
He never complains. Never. And I complain nonstop.
That's how my dad was. He never complained either. He knew to have his port here for his cancer treatments. And the best he would do is we would say, what kind of day, how is your day going, Dad? Which was always a dumb question because you're like, you're going through this. But he eventually got it down to, he'd say, all right, here's how I'm going to state it. I always feel like crap. So I'm going to tell you when I feel good crap, medium crap, and bad crap. And if it's bad, really bad. So we started doing that. Yeah, which is probably how your husband feels.
But speaking of cancer, I know 2 people right now that were accepted into 3rd level clinical trials. One was a child about 5 years old. It was their only hope to survive the cancers they have. And we had gotten really far to the point. They felt these would cure it for them, defunded with Doge. So both now have, their doctors are telling them less than a year left to live.
Oh my God. Oh, it's horrible when those things hit home for people. Like they're very real consequences. It's not just a line item.
But this gal that's going through it, I'm going to her house tomorrow. She's doing a brunch. She has a meetup. She is out. Her attitude is she's going to live large while she's here.
I think those kinds of folks live well past the time frame they're given because that mindset is a whole other, like you were saying, manifesting. I think that's so incredibly powerful, probably more so than any holistic or traditional medication you can take. Wow. I hope she lives well beyond the year.
I do too.
Speaking of meetup, though, you are starting a meetup group here locally. Where did that come from? How did you get inspired to do that?
Well, back when I was working, I had several meetups, Coffee and Contacts, Success Business Networking, and Women's Power Networking. One morphed into the other, and they were super successful. And I believe people have taken them over. I don't really follow up anymore. But it was so much fun. I made so many great contacts. So now, kind of like you're doing, I thought it would be a good way for seniors to connect and share. Like at our Lifetime Coffee, I learned about the radio frequency treatment, and we can share that kind of stuff with one another. It's always somehow people always have it worse than you do, and it makes you feel better. Like, oh, I don't have it that bad. And community and socializing are important. So, and it should be starting up within the next month. And the name of it is Savvy, SAVVY Seniors, in case anybody's interested.
Oh, that's so neat. And it'll start local, obviously, here. So
Yes.
Jean and I are both in the greater Raleigh area. So it'll hopefully they'll expand like a type of franchise. It's so needed. It is so needed.
Well, that's one of the reasons, Jean, that Carrie and I started this, because this is geared to the silent and baby boomer generation. And just as the silent generation is kind of the unspoken and unasked. If you think about them going to physicians, they don't really ask the questions and do the research like you've done behind the scenes. So I love that you're putting these groups together, because then the people that do ask those questions can kind of share best practices. And that's kind of the reason why we put this together. It's a forum for baby boomers, silent generation, and their caregivers.
Well, we all appreciate what you're doing for us.
That's so kind. Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to mention is things are going on with people that you can't see. For instance, I can't find my car in a parking structure, so I won't park in them. And people are like, well, get a handicap plaque. But I just know, and I don't mind walking. I mean, at the gym, I take the furthest parking spot. I have no issues walking. But if it's a new place, I've had 3 times where strangers had to drive me around to find my car.
What's crazy is, although that seems like perhaps something for the older generations, I am not going to lie, I've done that more than 50 times. I forget where I parked, and you do this with your key and you try to be discreet about it. And then you're like, oh, it's over there. Yeah, but that's hard. I get that too. You would feel almost guilty doing a handicap placard because your need is not physical. It's a mental remembering. So it's instead of that, you need some sort of other way to remember.
Well, what I do try to do is go a straight line from the door. Is no matter how far I have to go, I try to make it a straight shot. And I find, like with a lot of things, there's little tricks and workarounds. Always put the phone in the same place. Just little things, but create patterns so that it doesn't always require extreme memory.
How do you do it on the facial recognition side? So like if I came up to you, so we met recently, day 2, or maybe it's even a whole week later, and I come past you and you have no idea who I am. What is the way to remember? What do you have a trigger? Is it the initial conversation where I'm like, hi, Jean, and you're kind of like, oh, wait, who is this? Okay. Do you need to have more conversation to trigger the memory? Because the facial recognition won't be there, right?
Well, okay, you, for instance, you're gorgeous, blonde,
dear.
blue eyes, you look almost like my daughter, believe it or not. She doesn't look anything like me. She looks more like your daughter.
I want to be Italian though, Jean.
It's just really hard until we start talking and they bring something up that I'll remember the conversations. That's what's crazy. It's the visual I don't remember, but the conversation, I'll remember everything.
Is that prevalent? I know sounds like yours came out of COVID, but do you think it's prevalent in the baby boomers or silent generation to have that?
I've talked to a few people that, another gentleman at the coffee group, I won't give his name, keep his privacy, but he said he's had it his whole life. So it
Oh,
is a thing, facial recognition. It's just somehow COVID damaged, I think, part of my brain. And in fact, the radio frequency I'm doing on my back, I'm seeing that they're starting to do things to stimulate brain cells. And I'm going to follow that. And when it's available, I'm giving it a try.
wow. Wow. You should actually start your own thing on, not that you don't have anything else to do with your documentaries and Lifetime and all that, but trying out these different therapies, especially for your age group.
Oh, I try anything.
That's amazing. Because what if somebody was thinking, okay, I have such a limited budget, but I'm desperate. This traditional is not working for me. Which thing do I give a shot to? I think that'd be so neat for people to hear. Like, what so far do you think has worked for you? Anything specifically?
Well, I told you, Dr. Bredesen's recommended psyllium for the gut. Anybody,
Um,
whether it's constipation or diarrhea, psyllium balances the pH and absorbs all the bad stuff, and it eliminates toxins in your system, and it's cheap. I buy it on Amazon.
is that from
And
the husk stuff, psyllium
yeah, I
husk?
get the finely ground psyllium, and I actually bake it into what is called a minute muffin. I mix that with almond flour and a little baking soda and eggs and blueberries and throw it all together. If I miss a few days, I really feel it.
I feel like for me, I was going to ask you what solutions you think there are out there and to daily challenges. But what I'm already starting to gather from you is a looking at whole foods, looking at alternatives in general, doing a lot of research, still going the path of traditional science-based, proper, physician care, but not leaving stones unturned in other potential areas to make yourself feel better, whatever you're going through.
I think water is a big thing for baby boomers and silent generation because there wasn't bottled water back then. I remember even when I went to high school in the 80s, you didn't drink much water during the day. Look at any type of research, it'll show you that you should drink a minimum of whatever your body weight is, half of that in ounces in water per day. And I've spoken to my dad about that, and there's no way he would drink, let's say 110 ounces of water a day. Getting maybe a couple glasses down him a day is difficult, but I think that helps with gut issues as well.
You're absolutely right. I should be drinking a gallon a day. I can't. I drink half a gallon, and I hate water, just so you know. So I mix it with like this product called Bloom, or I've got a few others that have nutrients, and they're sweetened with something like monk fruit or stevia, and then I can get it all down. And I start out with my bottle, and my goal is to get through it by the end of the day. That's a really good point. Hydration is way more important than we realize for the most part.
And I think it's a male-female thing too, because I do see a lot of females carrying around their water bottle all day. But if you look at men past the age of 60, I don't think anybody's really carrying around their Stanley cups or their Yetis, and I think that has a lot to do with gut health as well.
I think you're doing yourself a service though too with your Whole Foods because that has water content in it. I think you're probably getting more than you think just because you're eating so well.
So, Jean, how did you end up on the East Coast? You told us kind of a great story at the beginning of how you ended up in California. How did you end up on the East Coast if you start out in Newport Beach and Hermosa and San Diego?
Well, the hubby took over being the main breadwinner after, I had my kids. And he worked for every major auto part company you can think of. And they moved us from San Diego he had to work in Riverside, but as far as I would go was Temecula, California, which is a little wine region. It's cute. Then we went to Denver, and then we came here. And that was all through his job. I say he's out of the doghouse after 27 years for moving us out of California because the kids have stayed here. My grandbabies live close. And I told you that house is now over $1 million, and it's just a little stucco house. I don't think they would have stayed. So it's all good.
I just realized right now we've followed the exact same path. I was Southern California, Denver, here.
Oh, wow.
So weird. We were meant to be. I don't think I dragged my feet to any of them, though. I was pretty happy with all of them.
I left this community in California that I was just like family with. And Denver, they didn't like Californians at the time. And I had no community at all. So luckily we only were there 2 years because it was really hard on me. You have small kids, you don't have a job, you don't have anywhere to go but I was locked up in a house and I wasn't used to that.
I feel your pain. I gotta say, although Colorado, I think, has gotten a lot more because now it's even more mishmash melting pot from now versus probably what was that, maybe 40 years ago for you. So we got there 16 years ago. We were there. And when I first got there, I parked in a Target parking lot and I still had my UCLA alumni frame around my car, a license plate. And I kid you not, I came out from the store in Target and on my front windshield is a note that says, "Go back to LA. We don't want you here." And I was devastated. I was so sad. I really felt like we got to get out of here. Like, we don't belong here. They hate us. I think that animosity was there still a little bit, perhaps.
People would flip us off until we switched license plates, and I had babies in the car.
Oh, that's worse. Yeah, that was my only bad incident. Other than that, I mean, Colorado's amazing. The people we met were amazing, but that was definitely not the best welcome that I've ever had. So yeah, I feel you on that.
From day one, though, here people were, well, everybody was new in our area. So, we're in North Raleigh. So it was very welcoming right from the get-go.
That's how we've been too. It's been really amazing. People here are really kind, just like you. I met you in 10 seconds.
Well, people think of the South as being, segregated and racially biased. At least here, where the part of the South I'm in and you're in, I've got very diverse friends. I mean, every skin color you can think of and in my friend list. And I like diversity. I think it makes life fun.
Raleigh is one of those great cities in the United States that is kind of undiscovered by people outside of it. I think Raleigh specifically doesn't advertise it that much because they don't want everybody to move there, but
you
it's a
just
great
got ranked
area.
the #1 city to be in.
Wow.
We made it before the crowds. Jean, I have to bring you into story time now. I think you already gave us your legacy, which I think is just beautiful. Story time. Is there anything from your past? You could be a baby at 3 years old, your first memory, or something from your 20s, 50s, doesn't matter, that stands out to you in your life.
Okay. Well, my mama was, she wasn't ready. I was a child of the 70s, right? And everything was flipping from, bobby socks and plaid skirts to fringe jeans and smoking doobies. And she couldn't handle it. She tried to lock me in my room all through high school. And so what I would do, I'd climb out the window. I ended up hitchhiking all over with girlfriends. I had friends. I never did it alone. You know what? I never met a bad soul. And I mean, we went to Florida. We went up north. We went all over.
Oh my God. Where was your starting point again? Where did you grow up?
St. Clair Shores. And I
Wow.
had these running buddies. And those two, theirs was the opposite. They had mamas that were single and a little flighty. Would you want to put it nicely? And they were glad to have the kiddos out of the house.
Jean, you renegade. Goodness. I don't know if I always wonder if today's day and age that is possible.
Oh, I'm lucky Charles Manson didn't pick me up. That's all I can say. But old people would pick us up then. Senior citizens, we had backpacks and sleeping bags, and they'd let us sleep in their gardens, and they'd bring food to us and they would feed us and want to hear our stories. It was a whole different time. But then it was, it was widely done.
So this is you in high school? Hitchhiking?
Yeah. I turned 18, left home like the next day and never hitchhiked or did drugs again. At that time, I was doing I tried them all. If you can name one, I tried it.
Oh my goodness. Child of the times, I suppose. It's not like that doesn't happen now.
Well, now they lace stuff with fentanyl and people have HIV. Luckily, none of that stuff was going around.
Did mom ever find out about this?
I would lie, and she couldn't deal with it, so she just tuned it all out.
Oh my gosh. I'm interviewing my mom, and there's just no way. There's no way. First, we were too far from anyone, so there was no one to hitchhike to or with, so that would have never happened. But I think even then, when I was in high school, it was just not. I think the time had already passed.
I think it was a short window where that was like I said, it was the scope of people that would give us lifts were. It was mostly senior citizens, honestly, that gave us rides.
Wow.
And truckers, too. We loved riding in a truck. That was like the best thing if a trucker picked you up.
That's my nightmare. My God.
And they were nice. People were just really nice back then.
It's still, I think I lived part of my nightmare, which is why that's a nightmare. It wasn't like a big rig, but I was driving to Vegas with somebody who was helping me for a trade show. And we had, the trailer in the back, stuff in the car. And there's a road between Colorado and Vegas that's like a solid hour that there's like, we're not kidding. There's no more gas for an hour. Please get gas. We drove right past it. Sure enough, like 20 minutes in, car dies. I was like, oh no. And it's me and the friend. And we're kind of like, okay, what do we do? It's starting to get to nightfall. And this truck pulls over that clearly realized that we were having trouble. It was like a truck, like a Ram or whatever. So we look at each other and we're like, what do we do? Who goes and who stays? Who stays with the car and who goes with these people that we don't know? It's three men and I look in the back of the truck and I kid you not, there's two dead, bleeding out deer in the back of the truck. And then if you peek a little closer, there's a truckload of guns. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I think to this day, I'm really angry at myself. I chose the wrong one. What do you think I did?
You
You
stayed
went
with the
with that.
car.
I went with them.
Ugh.
I was the one who went with. I was sitting in the back of what do they call that? The cab? The little extra cab. The three of them are in the front. The guns are right there. There's more guns on the ground. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the day. This is when I die. This is how I go. And my phone didn't work. And I'm like, okay, just wait this out. And then they're exiting. And I'm like, okay, this exit is either going to take me to a dark hole or they're really going to stop and get gas. And the second I saw the gas station, I had thought some angel is looking over me because they're really just getting gas. And they took me back and everything was fine. But yeah, so I have a nightmare about everything you did is my worst nightmare. I could never do that.
I feel like I've always had angels looking over me, though. Honest to God. Even today, I feel like somehow there's like, I feel like they're ancestors,
Oh, I love that thought. That's a nice thought. Well, thank you for spending time with us today, Jean. That was really
That's
nice
been
to
great.
chat with you. So many facets to you in your life. It's really neat. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
will
my
Yeah.
one piece of advice, visualize what you want, not what you're afraid of. The universe will manifest what you're thinking.
I love that. Yeah, it's true for every generation, right? Good advice for anybody. That's wonderful. Thank you, Jean.
Well,
I'll see you at the gym soon.
we'll see you soon.
See
Bye.
you soon. Carrie and Corey here, back after interviewing Jean Hedges yesterday. And we chatted with her a lot about her experiences with her health. Namely, actually, what was surprising to us is all the alternatives that she discussed. Overall, she's actually doing pretty well. She does have some aging issues like glaucoma and regular back pain and joints and things like that. But she's extremely positive and is very willing to try alternatives. So I think something that surprised Corey and I was all these different ideas on alternatives.
Yeah, she's definitely somebody that does a research. She mentioned doing research on Harvard Business Review and podcasts and websites, and I would encourage everybody to do that. But I think what was really fascinating with her is she's tried anything from alternative medicine like mushrooms all the way to like, red light therapy and things like that. So kudos to her.
Now, she even said yesterday, remember after the podcast, she was on her way she called it soft wave therapy. And she was literally doing it that day as well. And one thing I forgot to ask her was if her willingness to seek these alternatives was out of any form of trust or mistrust, or just feeling like a doctor is one person and perhaps the reason she researches so much more is being more informed on other ways. But there is varying levels of trust based on age group, which is interesting. I was doing a little research after. I was just curious. Is there inherently, I would think older generations have an easier time trusting their doctor. Almost maybe it's more old school mentality of authoritarian figures carry more weight and trust automatically. And sure enough, it looks like I've got this study right in front of me. So there was a PwC survey that 84% of 65 plus trust their doctor. 69% of the silent generation in particular from that group felt, and the quote is, actually comfortable visiting a physician. And trust with the other generations was Gen X is 60% and Gen Z is 40% that trust their doctors. And in fact, there was more detail on it that Generation Z is more likely to trust the opinions of friends and families, and even content on social media, than their doctor, or at least in conjunction with their doctor. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm interested. So 84%, I would believe that. Now, we think of the silent generation as the baby boomers as kind of the unheard and unseen. So my question that I would throw back kind of to the universe or our population is, are they actually asking the questions?
Yeah. That's a good question. Something Jean said is she does a lot of research after, or at least that's what she was talking about yesterday. What was interesting to me is as I kept reading is the importance of doing a lot of research before. And that might mean pre knowing what your condition is and pre-diagnosis. There's still things you can do to research. And the reason behind that is to have better questions. So when I'm speaking with my doctor, that I can actually get things answered that are worrying me, so it's more of that preparation side.
I think the baby boomer and silent generation also, if the doctor tells them something once, they think that that's for the rest of their life. Like a doctor told my mom one time not to take ibuprofen, and
That's
30 years later, she's never taken ibuprofen. I'm like, if you twist your knee and you have inflammation, you need to take ibuprofen.
yeah. Oh my gosh, your poor
Yeah.
mom.
So I think it's one of those things that you're right. If they hear it, it's cemented, but it doesn't mean that it's for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I wonder if it's harder for older populations to change their mind than younger. I
I
don't know.
think it's I think it's definitely harder for them to question authority.
Mhm.
So you just mentioned, Gen X, trust the opinion of their doctor 40%. I think that younger generations will will question authority more so than older generations. They were just taught that you don't question authority.
What I was just thinking about is a baby boomer doctor having a Gen Z patient and what that interaction would be like, no, I'm telling you this, and then getting all these questions. And it could be extremely frustrating on both ends because they see themselves as the ultimate truth source. And the patient, the younger
Right,
generation, might think, like, well, I'm going to question every word you say.
right.
That would be a very interesting interaction.
Yeah, for sure.
So she was researching a lot afterwards. So post diagnosis, even hoping to understand if you have like multifaceted conditions and two or more at the same time, what do you do? And Google can be a nightmare and scare you. But I think that having done a little research, there are some places where at least you can get reputable information. One of the best ones was this National Institute of Health website. It has a whole thing on how to find reliable health information online. So it's literally like an entire article, things to prepare for, things to look for. Is it secure? Who's behind the website is always an important one, things like that. So we'll put that in the show notes on that link. And then there's another one. It's a government website called medlineplus.gov. And that one has over 1,000 health related topics of dependable consumer health information. So we'll put that in the show notes too. But it's just nice to know that there is resources out there. Circling back to our kind of the things that are concerns of these populations center around, it's the outliving my money, healthcare, and having a purpose. It was interesting because Jean actually touched on all three.
She did.
Yeah, it was surprising to me that a discussion starting about healthcare merged into those other two topics, all three of them really intertwine. So when she was talking about how she set herself up, really her and her husband, to not outlive their money through doing something that she knew she was good at from her mortgage lending background.
Right.
That was really smart and that was really good information to share. And then having a purpose, that was very interesting because what's starting to surprise me is how different people's purpose are and how little they have anything to do really with money or leaving behind millions of dollars, or it has nothing to do with that. So
Yeah, in our last podcast, we talked about legacy, and that's really not coming up just organically. And I think people aren't really thinking about legacy very often in their day to day lives.
that's so true. You have Jean over here who talks about wanting to make documentaries about military and PTSD, and she didn't come from the military. You would never guess that about her, but that's what she would love to leave behind. It's just completely eye opening to me.
Well, I think passions change throughout your lifetime on your interests and activities and hobbies. But the thing that really stood out to me is she talked about she had a health condition that had her choose to leave her career. So she specifically said it was a choice for her to step away from her career. And it feels like that she's really been able to find a purpose after that because that was a choice of hers. Now, she mentioned her husband that had a stroke and then he got riffed at his job, which is a reduction in force. That's what it stands for at 62. And he's really hasn't bounced back from it. He hasn't found his identity or purpose in retirement. And I think that there's just so many people like that out there that go from having a purpose and identity and a team and expectations for them on a day-to-day basis that go into the later stages of life and really struggle to find that same type of identity.
Yeah. We talked about retirement with Peter, and his was somewhat voluntary too, I would say, how he came in and out. But
Right.
something I never considered was being forced into it. Like you could plan all you want and have in your head, okay, I'm going to plan that at 67 or 72 or whatever it is, I'm going to retire. So I'm going to backtrack and do all the right things and start planning hobbies outside of that. But what if
Right.
something happens like a stroke and it's 7 years or 5 years earlier than you were anticipating or planning? Like that is such a shock to your whole system.
Well, and to go one step further, full retirement age now is 70. And
Wow.
think about, just when Social Security started, average age of that people lived to was 62. So retirement was 60 then. So people would be on the average on Social Security for 2 years. Now at full retirement, it's 70. So think of how many people out there are really doing a full 70-hour a week job at 70 years old.
And then thinking about retirement, and that would be tough because the more years you spend full time in a role, of course, your identity will be further tied to it. A career of 50 years now, 50, 55 years, and
Wow.
then whoop, like it's over. That would be very, very difficult.
The movie, The Intern always pops up in my mind with, Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
He went into retirement and he said, "I did all the clubs and golfing and yoga and all this stuff, and then I just became, bored," and his wife had passed away, and then he was looking for something to do, so, that's
It makes sense, I think, for men and women. Like, look at Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Although Charlie Munger, of course, recently passed away, both of them are in or were are in
I
their
think
90s.
Buffett turned 94 this week.
And he's only now retiring at the end of the year. Only now. Now. And his mind is still very, very sharp. People still absolutely trust him. I mean, look at the companies that he's running through Berkshire. Like those are big companies and people still trust that mind to lead it all through all these years. So imagine if you're one of those people who still feels very with it and like you have a lot to contribute to your field. Why not go back in?
Yes. I mean, I think choice is what we're getting at. Do people have a choice whether they work or not? I think some people will retire and then end up going back to work because their financial situation doesn't afford them not to work.
Yeah. And there, I think you had mentioned on Peter's podcast or maybe the after show that you can still make income having claimed Social Security. There's still a dual possibility there, right?
You can. And I took a workshop a couple weeks ago. However, once you earn more than a certain amount of money, for every amount that you would make above a certain level, you get penalized. Like so at a certain age, I think it's 67, if you make over this amount, for every $2 you make over it, they take $1 away. And then once you get to, I think it's 70, then there's a little bit more flexibility. For every $3 you make over the threshold, they take $1 away. So you're definitely penalized for making money past that retirement age.
I don't know how I feel about that. It seems like you earned it
For sure.
along the way for the 20, 30, 40 years you banked. It's like, give them the money.
Right.
They deserve it. It's crazy.
If
God
you
forbid.
can and want to keep working, then keep working.
Yeah. What's interesting to think about even further is because of birth rates, which we could get into sometime, declining so much and people aren't replacing themselves at the correct rate right now for the workforce. you do wonder if there will actually be maybe reverse incentive to keep working and claim Social Security. So there is more labor available. I mean, who knows? Maybe there is an incentive coming for folks who have retired or are retirement age to keep going.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, just a few other interesting things that I've known for a while is from generations, silent generation and the baby boomer generation on the average spent 4.5 hours a day with an adult figure, like their parents when they were grown up. And
Wow.
that's really where between the ages of 8 and 12 is where your motivators on why you do things are set in. However, Gen X is when women went back to work, and they call the latchkey generation is that. And it went from 4.5 hours a day to 17 and a half minutes a day was the average amount of time that Gen X spent with an adult figure.
That seems wild. That's
And
enough.
then it swung way back because now we're all helicopter parents and spend a lot more time with their kids, but it swung back. So you can see throughout the generations on the influences that were had on each generation and where their motivators came from.
Wow. That's really interesting. I actually love reading up on motivations in general, the extrinsic versus intrinsic. So,
Mhm.
like external validation, things like that, praise, accolades, and then intrinsic being your own drive and desire and ambition, not fed by any sort of external validation. And also for the older populations, what drives them? What drives when we talk about purpose? What are those motivations behind that? For Jean wanting to do a documentary, a very high empathetic, cause forward, intrinsic motivation. That's what I gather from her on her
Mhm.
purpose and what she wants to do. But it would be interesting to keep asking those questions. And maybe what we'll find out is as you go later in life, your purpose, maybe that is all intrinsic. Because at some point, why do you care about other external factors anymore? It's like when people laugh and say, an old guy or old woman can say whatever the heck they want because, no F's given. And it's kind of true. Why would you? Who cares? What is someone going to say to you that could possibly fluster you at that point? You've
I
probably been
wonder I
everything.
wonder what age you convert from just being a grumpy old guy to like an eccentric man.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
mean, does it take a cool hat or is it just an age range where
I was going to
and
say,
now what you did when you were 50 is now accepted because you're just an eccentric 80.
I do think the outfit has something to do with it. When
Sure.
your outfit gets more colorful, maybe.
Or when it's just completely out of fashion, you're eccentric. I
And
don't
it
know.
doesn't matter anymore.
That's right.
Whatever. Yeah. That's
One thing that I thought was interesting is each guest, though not necessarily Peter, but our other guests mentioned music.
mhm.
And I think, everybody has always said music is a vehicle to the soul. And I think music has an opportunity to get you out of bad moods. It's nostalgic because it'll throw you back to maybe something that helps you reminisce a better part of your time or when a loved one was around.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a theme that keeps popping up is music.
Yeah. And even when you go towards, sad topic of death, I believe hearing is one of the last faculties you lose. So I even remember I think my mom might have brought that up when my dad was passing. We turned on opera music because he loved opera. You did kind of find some peace, even though he wasn't coherent, that perhaps he could hear it. So there's just something really special about it in general. So it'll be interesting to hear if that theme keeps coming up around music, especially older generation.
Think music and then certain smells. Have you ever walked into a place and you smell something that reminds you of
Oh yeah.
childhood or something?
That matter. Mine is freshly cut grass with soccer fields.
Okay.
It gets me every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my big one.
I recently started watching old reruns of MASH, and when
Nice.
that theme song comes on at the beginning, it reminds me of my grandpa and grandma because I would watch that when I was at their house.
Oh, love that.
It came out in the '70s, but the show was about the '50s, so it spans a long generation, but
I'll
yeah.
have to keep asking about music or see if it comes up, or even theme songs like you just brought up.
Yeah. A couple other things that came out we talked from a health perspective, we talked about working out in the morning. I brought up the fact of water.
Yep.
Think
How's great.
Water is a powerful one, and I think it points to the men of this world where, back when we were in school, there wasn't bottled water.
Yeah.
I don't have any statistical data to prove my point, but you see older women walking around with, Stanley and Yeti cups all the time, but you don't really see people that are baby boomers or silent generation that are male walking around with that water bottle unless their caregivers filling something up and making them drink it.
I'll have to pay more attention and see if I see it, but hydration's a big one.
Well, I think hydration will keep the brain lubricated.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what people want is to make sure. I mean, if you had a choice between losing cognition and your body still being healthy or your body's starting to give away, but your mind is still there, I would take the mind over the body, I think.
Yeah, me too. I remember you also talked about creatine, which was surprising to me just because I think of it as like a bro powder, but you've brought up some good points about its potential benefits beyond that.
Yeah, I did a little bit more research after that. There's a PhD scientist out there named Rhonda Patrick that does a lot of research on creatine. And to boil it down, basically if you're eating a diet that includes meat, your liver is going to produce 1 to 2 grams of creatine per day, which your muscles use creatine for energy. Ironically, if you are a vegan or a vegetarian and you're not eating a lot of meat, then you're not putting creatine in your body. That's why you can supplement with up to 5 grams a day of creatine monohydrate. And it's good for energy and maintaining your muscle, um, uh, your muscle and energy.
Yeah.
However, the research that they've done is taking higher grams of creatine, anywhere from 10 to 20 to even 25 grams of creatine per day. That's when your brain will start using it. And then they've had some really positive research around cognitive performance. They pointed out a study where somebody was sleep deprived 24 hours and they took 25 grams of creatine, and within a very short period of time it reduced all the brain fog. So my question with somebody like Jean that has had some memory issues due to what she says is COVID related side effects, I'm wondering if creatine would help either bring some of that back, or with the amount of Alzheimer's and dementia today, if anybody's ever done any research with creatine around dementia.
That would be extremely interesting. And nowadays, they could probably watch the brain react to it in real time and kind of see what happens.
And I'll dig into it a little bit more because Dr. Rhonda Patrick does a lot on also omega-3 and vitamin D. So
Okay.
I'll look into a little bit more on creatine as well.
Yeah. I wonder how much memory loss will come up in the podcast too. Brain fog, memory loss, COVID or not.
Yeah, I guess my biggest thing is, there's preventative, and then there's trying to get back what you had before. And I guess my question around that is, does omega-3 and creatine help prevent the decline of cognitive performance? Or if you've had some sort of traumatic event, will it help you regenerate some of the stuff that you've had before?
It's a very good question. More research for sure.
Absolutely. Who's who's coming up next?
Coming up next is my mom, actually, special guest.
Oh.
Yeah, we dive into a not fun topic, which is my dad passing 13 years ago and dealing with loss at an older age, especially after nearly 40 years of marriage and what that's like. Not fun, but it's also kind of beautiful how long they were together.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, we'll see you on the next one.